Welcome back. This is News Extra. Now, tonight we're looking at how Norfolk County Council is planning to spend its money, our money, in fact. Tonight I'm joined by leader of the council, Cliff Jordan. Good evening, Cliff.
Good evening.
Now, important time for the council as the proposals come out about how all the money is going to be spent. But let's try and put it in simple terms. If Norfolk County Council was off to an old-fashioned meeting with the bank manager, seeing how things were, what would the bank manager be saying to Norfolk right now?
Well, it isn't that easy as like in business. It isn't quite so simple as that because of the way that the finances are done and the way it's put together. But he would certainly want to know what you were going to spend the money on and what proportion your budgets were going to hit where and what the outcomes from those budgets were going to be. In simple terms, I would have to say we were acting totally responsible to the public of Norfolk to look after those who are unable to look after themselves, the most vulnerable people in our society. That's where the focus, the main focus of our budget would be at this time.
Because everyone knows that times are tight, budgets are tight, there have been plenty of economies over the last few years. Now we're talking around, was it £44 million worth of savings that are going to be made. Obviously that people might worry about that. Well, where can that money be saved now?
Well, it isn't like you go along and say we've got to stop and cut and burn, slash and burn. It isn't like that. What we're looking at is new ways of delivering the services, new technologies, just different ways of doing it, to try and do it as cheap as you can. Also, how we can shut down and condense the back office side of it so that the whole thing becomes more cost effective.
So I guess a lot of the easy economies, they've long since gone, haven't they, over the last few years?
Well, what they call the low-hanging fruits are long gone donkey's years ago, yes, they have. It's getting tighter and tighter to do efficiencies, real efficiencies, to make things much more efficient. It is getting extremely difficult.
Because is there a way now that with, as you say, finding new ways of doing things, I guess that can only save so much. Is there going to be things that are going to have to go, things that people won't like to see go?
I can't really answer that because we aren't to that stage. And the funny thing with local government is like national government, nothing stays still. The government changes priorities and then all of a sudden things are different. So I can't really say that, but what I can say, there, without a shadow of a doubt, there will be things that we have to rationalise, without a doubt.
Can we say what they are yet, or is it far too early in the process?
Well, it'd be difficult to say, because the priorities change. One thing I can tell you is that the people we look after, we've got to look after, otherwise we're being irresponsible, and that is not acceptable to anybody, let alone to a councillor, but it certainly wouldn't be acceptable to, for instance, if my mother didn't get help, I wouldn't be happy. Well, that applies to other families. Same with children, looked after children, we have a responsibility for those as well. There are children, there are kids, Norfolk children, we have a responsibility for them. That type of thing won't be cut for their detriment, but there could be marginal things of which I can't list because, as I said, things may change.
Now, I know you've been openly critical in the past of the regime that went before, the Rainbow Alliance, the Rainbow Coalition, or however you want to call it, when all the other parties were in power here above the Conservatives, even though the Conservatives were the largest party here at County Hall.
Yeah.
You've been openly critical of them in the past. Now, is this an opportunity for your party to put your stamp on this place?
Well, that's what we're trying to do. We found over £30 million of money that this alliance has cost us. We're having to correct that. We're putting this budget back to solid foundations. These aren't savings that we say we're going to make and then you can't make. Oh dear, we can't make and fill them up with reserves, cover it all up. We aren't doing that anymore. That's finished. There's going to be good, solid, financial, I suppose you'd call it footings. The county has to be financially sound. Otherwise, people suffer in the long term because all you do is you run out of reserves in the end. In the end, you run out of them. You run out of other people's money. You just can't spend it like that.
Well, you say there was 30 million. Where was this money? What was the problem with it?
Well, it's like budgets. They've well saved 10 million here, 15 million there, and there's in the hope of saving it. Unless they're already in an underspend, whenever the financial year started, they haven't got started. So they're in a real overspend straight away.
Now, there's £9 million that's going to be going into children's services, which we know has been a troubled department over the last few years. With that extra money going in, is that viable long term? Is this just covering over a gap in the short term, or is it sustainable long term?
Now, what that's done is put them back to solid foundations again. So the next budget, they should run in on budget. I'm not saying that will be simple. I'm not saying that will be easy. But it should, as a whole service, be able to come in on budget. We've put them dead straight.
So it's just a correction more than anything.
That's extra part of the 30 million. That is part of it.
Mm-hmm. Well, adult services as well. An extra £25 million going into that. Are you pleased to be able to do that? And where exactly is that money coming from?
Well, there's a variety of ways where it comes from. Other increases we got from government and so forth, all been directed to that. There's 3%, as you probably know, we got 2% and we're borrowed 1% from next year. And if you want me to explain that, I can, but that is the social service earmark council tax that the government said we had to make. 2%, 2%, 2%, over the 3 years, 6%. This last chancellor said you can borrow 1% like from next year, so we can have 3%, 3%, and then the last year no percentage increase. So totally the same percentage in increase in council tax, but taken over 2 years and not 3.
Because no one likes putting taxes up.
No.
It takes a very politician to put taxes up. But do you think the public will understand why their council tax is going to have to start creeping up?
I really hope they do. I mean, this is about being responsible in running the council. It's about telling them that the vulnerable people need protecting. But no politician in the right head would put the council tax up, what we're proposing, in an election year by 4.8%. You wouldn't do it. You'd try and cover it all up, and then the next year you would then bang it up. But it's wrong. What's right is to do what we're doing. That's the correct way to do it, and we're telling people, and hopefully they'll understand we need to do it. There's a gap and we need to fill it.
Because when the money is so tight, are you confident that the financial problems are being addressed now? No problems are being delayed for another budget, for another time?
As far as I'm aware, I'm totally confident that we're going to start the next financial year with a clean slate. And the savings that are being asked are rigorous. They should be able to make these savings. With the new technologies, new ways of working, they should be able to bear down on costs. If they don't, we've then got to really look. This is where I couldn't answer the first question. What do you cut to take that money to fill this gap?
Because when those decisions have to be made, those aren't the fun ones for a politician, are they? When you're having to pick which services to lose.
Yes, but you have to. You can do that. You can do that by talking to the public instead of. I mean, I've never done anything other than being open and honest and straightforward with them. Tell them the truth, and I shall continue to do that. Tell them the truth, and hopefully they'll talk to me straight and tell me, so I know where's the most valued and where, and to them. I mean, I can put the value on it, but that's to me. I want to hear from them.
Well, Cliff, tricky decisions to come, but proposals for everyone to have a look at. Thank you very much indeed. That is all the time we have on News Extra for tonight. Better idea of where our money's getting spent in the coming months. Many thanks for joining us, and my thanks to Cliff. Have a very good night.